AITA for telling my sister it's her own fault her family is a mess because she wanted to adopt? My sister, Lucy, 38, has always wanted a big family. She and her husband, Tom, 40, had their son, Logan, now 9. But due to complications, Lucy couldn't have more kids. Lucy was devastated. About 3 years ago, she and Tom decided to adopt. Tom never outright said he didn't want to go through with it, but it was clear to see he didn't care one way or the other and just wanted Lucy happy. Logan said he didn't want a sibling. Lucy brushed over all these concerns with the "they'll get on board eventually" attitude. Long story short, they were eventually matched with boy Jack, who is now 11. Lucy said they all bonded, but Jack had behavioral issues, and whenever I saw them, I picked up on the fact that over time Tom seemed to be getting less and less keen. And many times when it was just adults he commented on his worry that Jack had latent issues. Because of his traumatic past, Lucy adored Jack and rubbished these concerns. I brought up Tom's hesitation, but Lucy said it was just taking longer for him to bond. They officially adopted Jack about a year ago, and since then things have fallen apart. Jack's behavior has either got a lot worse or Lucy wasn't speaking about it as much before. But it's clear Tom is at his wit's end. According to Lucy, he works late constantly, and whenever Jack has a tantrum he helps Lucy calm him down, and then takes Logan and leaves the house. Logan now hates Jack and won't play with him, which causes more issues. And he's started to act out. He spent his last school holiday with my family and is set to spend Christmas with us again because even the family therapist says it's good for him to have some space. Having seen this all unfold has been heartbreaking. Tom and Logan look more miserable every time I see them, and though Lucy would never admit it, she does too. Whenever I speak to her she talks about how hard it is, but always has Tom and Logan at fault. She has never taken any accountability for the fact that she didn't listen to anyone's concerns. She called me a couple of days ago to discuss plans for Christmas and when Tom would be dropping Logan off at my home. She again started ranting about Tom has basically shut down at home with her and Jack and how she thinks he's going to leave. She was calling him every name in the book and then started saying she was disappointed that Logan doesn't love Jack and she can't believe she raised a bully. I lost it. I told her the really bully was her. She bullied her family into adoption as a form of wish fulfillment, and Tom shouldn't have indulged her, but most of the blame falls on her for destroying her family. She screamed and cried and eventually called me evil and hung up. My parents are now saying I was an for telling her that, even though we all think it. But I think she needed to hear it and stop blaming her own child for being unhappy living in the chaos she created. Edit for everyone saying I said or implied that Tom is blameless. I didn't. I said to Lucy that Tom shares the blame. But I do think most of it lies with her, who I don't think has any blame, no matter how she's tried to place it on him. Is Logan. I may be too close to this to make a judgment. My first wife had a difficult second pregnancy. She was on bed rest for months to avoid a premature birth. When that child was 2 and my wife was 36, we decided she should not get pregnant again, so I had a vasectomy. 5 years later, her unwed teenage cousin had her baby taken by CPS. The cousin herself was a late adoption and always in trouble. She drank during the pregnancy and was neglecting the baby. My wife's aunt was well known to CPS, fostered a lot of kids and adopted some, but was over 60 at this point. She asked my wife if she wanted to foster this baby. Long story short, we adopted. I didn't particularly want another child at age 38. But I thought it would help my marriage because my wife had been regretting not having more kids. The stress of having such a difficult child, fetal alcohol syndrome, attachment disorder, etc., contributed to our eventual divorce. I still think it's the right thing to do, to adopt children when you are able. But it is very important to consider the whole family. In this case it was a 3-month-old who probably would have otherwise been adopted by a younger, childless couple who could give him their undivided attention. NTA. But what kind of parent adopts a child older than their own biological child? I'm surprised the adoption agency didn't pick up on that during the interview. I don't believe this story. When going through adoption, you are screened and interviews multiple times. Logan would have expressed not wanting a brother during that interview, and adoption process would be shut down, unless Logan just lied multiple times and played happy. NTA. Obviously we are only getting your side of the story. But man, it certainly does paint a picture. My sister, Lucy, 38, has always wanted a big family. She and her husband, Tom, 40, had their son, Logan, now 9. But due to complications Lucy couldn't have more kids. Lucy was devastated. About 3 years ago, she and Tom decided to adopt. Tom never outright said he didn't want to go through with it. But it was clear to see he didn't care one way or the other and just wanted Lucy happy. Logan said he didn't want a sibling. Lucy brushed over all these concerns with the "they'll get on board eventually" attitude. I think everyone knows one of these people, who justify and project and act like their wants are everyone else's just so they can feel good about their choices. But then, when they find out that isn't, and was never, the case, they all of a sudden are clueless and blindsided. Sounds like no one ever told your sister, no. It's understandable to have wants and expectations for your life. Of course. But the Rolling Stones have said it best, you can't always get what you want. Instead of treasuring her biological son and being grateful for him, she tried to pivot and force that big family she always wanted by adopting. And no one had the balls to speak up then, either. And even now, there's no culpability, no ownership, no self-reflection. It's her son and husband's fault. It's unreal. I'm sure people will tell you you're the asshole for telling her, and that you didn't need to do it. But I can't agree. She needed to hear it, and it's time she started to take some personal responsibility for her actions. NTA. While Tom may be a soft A himself, I can see where he comes from. He probably accepted in order to appease his wife. And he couldn't win in the situation either. His wife would have been permanently angry, disappointed, sad. Or he had to try and accept her pledge to adopt a child. In all of this, she is the one who refuses to see the problem, and even prioritized Jack over Logan, even when Jack wasn't her son yet, and now is even placing the blame on Logan, a child, calling him a bully just because he doesn't want to stay with Jack. At least Tom seems to be trying to care about his son. While she's not, she is digging her own grave. I'm afraid. If she at least recognized her own fault in this, and if she stopped blaming exclusively Logan, who has no blame, and Tom, who may have some, but way less than her, she could try and save something in her relationship with them. Otherwise, I'm afraid both of them would distance themselves from her, sooner or later. Especially Logan, poor boy. He probably can't wait to be old enough to get away from his mother and adoptive brother. This is just another great example of why adoption should not be used as a replacement for infertility or used for family expansion. Adoption needs to be child-centered. Jack should have been placed at a home with people who were trauma-informed and had previous experience with children with trauma. Sounds like the chaos has been created by an absentee father. Emo parents don't get to just shut down because their child is difficult. Life would probably be a lot easier if Tom would step up and be a dad. I think that's the conversation that must be had. Why is Tom absolved? You are making a lot of assumptions. You know what Tom thinks and you know what your parents thinks. I highly doubt that. You don't sound genuine in your post. Except for Jack and Logan. But I honestly think you and Tom suck the most in this situation. There is a piece of advice about whether or not to say a thing to a person. It's not always perfect advice. But I like the general idea. You ask yourself if what you want to say 1. True, 2. Kind. And 3. Necessary. If it doesn't fulfill at least 2 of those categories, it's best not to say it. I'm not sure what you said fulfills any of those categories. Maybe Lucy needed to hear something. But I don't think telling her that everything is her fault and that she destroyed her family was it. What, exactly, did you hope to accomplish? She still has a child with behavioral problems to deal with, a husband who has checked out of the situation, which is apparently fine by you, and another son who is suffering. She's in the situation she's in, and while she should not be blaming Logan, she certainly has the right to be frustrated with Tom, who willingly adopted a child and then decided he didn't want to deal with the difficulties of that. And Jack is also blameless. What a horrible situation. It's so hard when the only fix is to go back to the past and not do the thing you should never have done in the first place. I even feel bad for Lucy. Because how on earth is she going to move forward? But you are NTA for telling her the truth. She needed to hear it. This child should not have been adopted unless everyone was on board. Adoption is a long and difficult process in most places. For the adoption to go through, that means anyone who was hesitant didn't speak up or outright lied. Throughout the process, extended family are often also interviewed in this process. If they had concerns and had the opportunity but said nothing, then they are also partially at fault. I don't not blame any children in this situation, but I do blame all the adults who didn't speak up. Your sister isn't the only person at fault here. That's why adoption agencies actually discourage parents from adopting children older than their biological kids. I know more than one family who did this and it didn't end well. AITA, in order for you to adopt, there are required training and interviews and extensive paperwork. So, in order to be approved, both parents had to be enthusiastic and willing. I'm concerned that you seem to be blaming one person for the dynamics and the adoptive kid. Somehow, if she had another through biological means and her husband checked out, would you give him the same pass to be an ass? Clearly, the family is in crisis and could use some professional help, kind words and encouragement. AITA, what is berating her at this point going to solve? Adoption is for life. She can't exactly give Jack back. This is her family now. For better or for worse. From what you said, she didn't bully anyone into the adoption. It sounded like Tom was okay with their having one child but was on board with adoption. He could have easily just said absolutely not. And if she went through with it still, which I don't see how she could without the consent of her husband, then that would be different. Also, of course a 6-year-old would say they don't want a sibling. It's not unheard of for a child to say they don't want siblings. Although my son is extremely excited about being a brother at the age of 5. But there are many times in which some kids like having all their parents' attention. While it is of course important to get the opinion of family, a 6-year-old should not be the be-all end-all of decision-making when it comes to a serious family change. As for the behavioral issues, that could have happened if they had a biological child. And then what would they do? Ship him off to boarding school or put him up for adoption? I will say that your sister is an for blaming her husband and son. It isn't their fault. It's no one's fault really. But you saying that she's to blame is an move because it's not really her fault either. She wanted another child. Her husband was on board and could have said no at literally any time during the lengthy process to adopt. I would hope that your sister has Jack in therapy to help him with his trauma and issues he's facing. So she would also be the if she isn't doing anything to try to help him. Also, family therapy is a good idea too. None of this means you get to blame your sister for wanting another child. Edit. I changed my verdict because your sister also sucks for her behavior towards you and her family. And also Tom is not innocent because, as I said, it's a long process to adoption, and at any point he could have said no and the adoption wouldn't have gone through. It's not like picking up an animal from a pet store. Both parents have to be completely on board for the process to go through. NTA. You get to have an opinion on this issue both because your sister is talking to you about it and you are taking on caring for Logan because of what is happening in that household. And yes, absolutely, Tom is an adult who is just as responsible as Lucy is for this situation. The two of them together have allowed this situation. And it sounds like neither did the work at all to make this family work. Adoption, especially adding in a family member later to a family unit, isn't easy. But that doesn't mean it has to be this hard. And it is very worthwhile. There should have been lots of therapy, lots of conversations, lots of reality checks, and lots of accommodations all around. She also need to hear this. Maybe not exactly as you said it, but it is clear she has been pushing of reality for a while. And still is in a different way by not taking any responsibility and even blaming her own 9-year-old for her decisions. Logan needs an ally, and I'm glad he has you. Info. Can you elaborate more on Jack's past and behavioral issues? And how much Lucy and Tom knew about that before deciding to adopt him? Also, did Logan say that he did not want a sibling in general? Or specifically about Jack after spending time with him? I didn't realize Tom and Lucy had this many neighbors. So many here must know them so well and their family dynamic with these comments. You are the asshole. I can't even comment more than that because I'm triggered ASF. YTA. Because you're bringing this up far too late. The time to speak up was before the adoption was finalized. After that, Jack became their child and the damage was done. The time for criticism and blame assignment ended and the time for support began. What are they going to do? Send the kid back? Everyone in this family needs therapy and my heart bleeds for them all. I hope they can move forward together.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. AmITheAsshole is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.